Welcome to Toast and Jams, a podcast about creativity. And on this episode, we have invited Sreesha Shetty. Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I'm a jewelry designer.
Yeah.
I run this brand called Shop Lune. I've been running it for 12 years. I'm also a shopkeeper. I have 3 stores in India, um, based out of Goa and Bombay. And that's essentially
That's pretty cool.
what I do.
So we ask guests to bring a drink of choice to toast. What drink have you chosen?
Chai.
Chai, of course. Why chai?
Because I have it every morning and I have been for the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
It's essential, my routine.
What do you like about it?
The fact that it's not as strong as coffee,
Mhm.
but it's strong enough to wake you up. So
I'm new to chai. I mean, I've tried it, but
really,
coffee's my go-to. So we've got some chai here. Should we pour
yeah,
and try some?
Yeah.
And this chai is from Diaspora Co., a collaboration with Diaspora Co. and Loka. And Loka have made this this new kind of chai brewer, I guess. So pass me your mug. I'll give you some without spilling it, hopefully.
looks like a cool color.
Yeah. Is that
Yeah.
the color? Is that how you would brew it?
I have it a little darker, but this is good. This is not too light.
Okay, because people in tea, it's a particular thing.
Yeah.
You need to make it the way you like it. All right. Cheers.
Cheers to chai.
Cheers to chai.
Yum.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Does that tick the box?
Yeah, it does. It has some masala as well in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So as well as the chai brewer, they've also done a collaboration on a masala chai blend, which is pretty cool. Have you seen that?
I know Sana, who runs Diaspora.
Who's Sana?
Sana runs Diaspora and she's a customer and she's from Bombay as well.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so she sources from farms around India.
That's amazing.
For her spices, I think chai is a new thing.
Yeah.
But it's
cool.
pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. So the Loka guy is a friend of mine, Anish, I play basketball with. So that is a small world, really small world. Pretty cool. We also ask our guests to choose a tune from their teenage years that, is influential or they remember that kind of inspired their journey. What song was that for you?
I mean, there've been so many, but I think One Hand in My Pocket by Alanis Morissette.
Yeah.
That keeps playing when I think about it.
How old were you? That came out in 1995. How old were you in 1995?
Really small.
Yeah.
Like, I think 12 or 10.
Okay,
But
so
yeah.
you're just coming into kind of your own taste in music at that age, really.
Also started watching a lot of MTV and VH1 around that time.
Yeah.
I was pretty much left, after my parents went to work, my brother and I were pretty much left to watch a lot of Cartoon Network, and I
Yeah.
would sneakily watch some MTV and VH1 and
Nice.
listen to things.
Is that how you got a lot of your music at that age, through
I think
TV?
so. Yeah, definitely. Through TV. Or even through like the local, my friends used to go to church. They would like practice.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But yeah, mostly through TV.
Yeah.
MTV and VH1.
Okay. And what kind of memories does that song conjure up for you?
I mean, I was quite an angsty, but
How were you dressing and like what were you up to at that time? Alanis Morissette says to me that you were kind of more left field or like indie, people would say, I guess, at that time.
I mean, I would listen to the whole range, but I think I was really curious about how people dressed, and most of that I would consume that through music and songs and the way people style themselves. But I think, yeah, maybe
Is that where
could
you
have
think?
been.
Is that where you think the kind of the interest or fascination for kind of jewelry or self styling came from? Was there seed planted around that time?
Could be, but I mean, I grew up in a sense that Goa was pretty much like a destination for people from everywhere. So I used to
Yeah.
look forward to the flea markets, and there'd be music there as well.
Mm.
Goa is known for its music scene,
Yeah.
so maybe some of that as well could have influenced. But definitely a lot of MTV and VH1, and a lot of my own choices in music came from there.
So what was life like for you in 1995 when this track came out? What was happening culturally, style-wise, things you're interested in that contributed to your life now, basically?
I think I was pretty much like, there was a lot. I kept moving schools, but always
Why was that?
because I didn't do really well in school. So I kept shifting. My parents kept putting me in
Is that
different
because when you say you
schools
didn't do well, is that because you're naughty?
academically. Yeah, I mean, I would kind of, I think I would a little naughty, and also I wouldn't really do well math. Like my math was really bad.
Okay.
So my mom would I kept moving schools every 2 years
Mm,
until I found a school that was really like interesting and supportive and patient
great.
with me academically.
Yeah.
But school was one, but the area that I lived in was pretty multicultural. So there were people from all over the world. Um, and I would observe that. I would read a lot of comic books. I used to enjoy Betty and Veronica for the clothes and the way the clothes were styled in those
That's cool.
books.
Yeah.
And I would look at a lot of people going to church and the way they dressed, which was very different to the way my family dressed, which was a little more conservative. So I was curious, just constantly curious.
Mm.
Also, my family had a store in Goa, so I'd see a lot of tourists walk in and out, and that would fascinate me. A lot of hippies at that time in Goa.
So you did a lot of people watching.
I did a lot of people watching.
That's quite valuable, I think.
Yeah.
For
I was
sure.
just very curious child.
Yeah.
And also bored because I didn't really do much in terms of extracurriculars. We were pretty much at home after parents left. So
Mm.
a lot of people watching and trying to figure out what I enjoyed and what I didn't.
What was the store that your family had?
A Hallmark cards and gift store.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you were introduced to the retail world around that time as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Yeah, that was like a cute little space, and a lot of people kind of looked forward to coming into the store, especially during Valentine's Day or
Mhm.
an occasion. So that was interesting.
So it was a family-run business?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. And you hung out a lot. Lots of family hung out there together.
My brother and I, after school, we
Yeah.
just like, my mom would make us sit on the cashier and try and teach us
Yeah.
things. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of, in terms of creativity, there was a lot of like, the cards were written in a specific way, or so we just kind of sit and observe all of those things. So we'd be in and out of the store talking to people. Yeah, that was pretty much it.
And moving forward from that, I guess after junior school,
Yeah.
how did your life kind of progress and where did your creative journey kind of start, I guess, for you?
I think it started early, like quite early on, because I feel Goa is so divided. I think about this quite often.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people ask me if I have a relative or an aunt or someone in fashion in India,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't,
Because they assume.
because they're like,
Yeah.
how are you running this by yourself? And like, who inspired you to start this? But I think with Goa, because Goa had its first McDonald's 5 years ago. I mean, when it comes to brands, there's literally none. So you make a lot of things by hand. So if you want an interesting outfit, you make it by hand, or you
Yeah.
go to a flea market and find something interesting.
That's cool.
So
That's a cool culture to have.
quiet.
It's a shame that there isn't McDonald's now. Yeah. But That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I would look forward to going to the flea markets and a lot of vintage, people selling vintage, or people essentially come there to sell their old or secondhand things or sell things that they make. So we'd go and like talk to the designers or the makers that made those things and
Mm.
try and find something interesting for maybe a birthday or some party.
So were you kind of, do you think you were picking up, subconsciously picking up tips on how to make things with your hands,
I mean, I thought that that was what you're supposed to do.
That's the
I
example you had. Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
thought
cool.
that if you want something cool, you have to know how to make it.
Hmm.
Um, and I couldn't figure out how, but I would always think about it. Um, Also, I originally am from South India, so my family moved to Goa in the 60s.
Hmm.
But when I'd go home, there'd be a lot of talk about jewelry, like gold jewelry is like a thing that uh, like most Indian families invest in, like
Hmm.
especially like
Yeah.
the generation before us.
Hmm.
So especially for occasions or festivals like Diwali, my mom would be like, buy some gold, or she'd take me to a gold store, and I would just I couldn't relate to the gold there because it'd be like chunky gold that you'd never wear again except for just for that one
It was
occasion.
for a special occasion and kind of
Yeah.
showy kind of thing. Yeah.
So I would just be like, can I buy 5 chains? And my mom would be like, but for what? And I would find the tiniest, most dainty chains and try to design something with the jeweler. This is something that my mom reminded me recently.
How old were you when you were doing that?
I was just like 12 or
Wow,
13.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So that's around the time you can say that you
yeah.
really started an interest.
Yeah, I think I realized I liked things that weren't too I was trying to develop a style of my own. Also make jewelry that I could kind of wear every day
Mm.
and not just keep it for an occasion.
There's a lot to be said for having a absence of something in your life and then creating it yourself.
Yeah.
Is pretty cool. Yeah. So what does creativity mean to you in kind of a sense of like a way of life?
I mean, it gives me a lot of peace.
Mm.
But if I speak about it in the context of what I'm doing right now, there's a lot of I think I enjoy running a business, a creative business, because I can sort of design, I I create visuals, I dabble with photography, video,
Mm.
writing, mixed media. So there's a lot. There are a lot of departments where I can like sort of experiment
There's
and
like
express
multiple
myself.
outlets for your creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then there's of course creativity in the way you kind of um, run a business. I think being a business owner is in itself quite a creative
Of course. Yeah.
process.
I
So
think you'd really struggle if you don't have any kind of creative ability to launch a business. You need
yeah,
to be able to think creatively, right?
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, it does give me a lot of peace. It keeps me sane, I feel, just being creative.
Going back to when you were kind of 12, 13, and you're picking out the chains, the gold chains, and you're kind of customizing and adapting, how did you learn to make jewelry by hand, I guess? Was it something that you studied or were you self-taught or was it a combination of both?
I mean, I started making jewelry in the UK, uh,
Oh, okay. So what year was that? When?
2012. So
Okay,
I
cool.
moved. I moved to the UK in 2012. It was like a gap year,
Mm.
and I think I was in Birmingham for a bit, for like a month or two. Birmingham's known for its jewelry quarter.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I would just walk into stores randomly because there's not much you can do there. I
Yeah,
didn't I didn't have any friends, but I just wanted to kind of explore and see what's up in
yeah,
Birmingham. So I kind of walked into a jewelry supply store, which actually closed down. I was trying to go back and say hi, but it's closed. So I bought a bunch of tools like pliers and chains and
So what
things
was the
like that.
first tools that you purchased? Now, how did you know what to buy?
I just asked the shopkeeper. I was like, I'm
Oh,
new.
wow.
I want to learn this.
Yeah.
What would you suggest?
Cool.
And she suggested this round nose plier. So it's like
What's-
essentially like a 5-in-1 thing. So you can do 5 different things. You can cut with it.
Okay.
You can sort of coil a wire
Yeah.
and attach 2 things together. Like it has multiple uses.
A good first tool.
A great first tool.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
used it for like 5 years. I had to stop using it
Okay.
after a point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I made my first necklace and I Instagrammed it.
Yeah. Good old Instagram.
Yeah, I think I got a phone like 6 months before.
But that was in the years where it
2012.
was just photos
Yeah, it was just photos.
and you had followers that saw your stuff and, you know, like you didn't have to.
Just like family
pay
and
for it.
friends.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But my friend was like, I want to buy that necklace.
Okay. So that
And
was your first customer.
actually, she wasn't. And she's still a little angry about that because
But you never sold it to her.
I didn't, but I used a few hashtags.
Mm.
And I remember there was this girl who got in touch and she's like, she was from New York. She is from New York. And she wanted to buy that necklace. And I remember telling my friend, I'll make one for you, but I want to figure how to ship this to New York.
Yeah, because something switched for you when you're like,
yeah,
okay, this can be a thing, a business. Did it happen like that?
No, it didn't. It happened gradually.
Okay, right.
But I tried to set up an Etsy store. I figured out PayPal.
Yeah.
And I shipped it to her. I used to go to the post office, make jewelry, go to the post office, and ship things for a year and a half when I was here. But it was still a passion project. It was a side project. I didn't think I could turn it into a business.
Yeah. Okay. Well, how did you navigate the transition from being someone that's interested in creating jewelry and making it and sending it to the old friend to actually having a business, a viable business that's now, 2 stores in, or 3 stores in? How did you navigate that journey between creation?
I think when it comes to Shop Lune and me, it's just like I feel when I look at it, I think it's just all about being. I think there was a point where I was confident enough to turn it into a full-time. It was just really about when I was confident enough to turn it into a business. Because I wasn't really confident about running a business for the first 5 years. I didn't think I had it in me. I just
Did you kind of take on the like marketing and sales and those kind of challenges? Did you welcome the move from creativity to business? That's kind of what I mean. Like, how was that transition met?
To marketing and
all the other stuff that a lot of creatives consider the unfun stuff.
Yeah. I mean, marketing was kind of natural to me because I enjoyed making jewelry and I enjoyed visually sort of photographing it and putting it out there.
Yeah.
That kind of came naturally to me. I worked as a journalist before that. So I think for a journalist, what's also important is the byline that you get. Like you work on a story and you get credited for the story. I was just so used to putting things out and kind of letting the world know that this is what I worked on.
That formula.
I don't know.
No, of course.
I think because I worked as a journalist for that long.
Makes sense. Yeah.
But with the business as well, there was a lot of research, like anything in journalism. So I kind of took that sort of formula and used it for my business, which, I mean, it had to involve research. It had to be objective. I had to make sure everyone was paid well. It was like kind of like well photographed, or the campaign was done well, or if people would if it had some sort of, but I wouldn't think much about whether people would buy the pieces or not, because I was kind of confident because I am my own customer.
Yeah, and I think you've got the right idea, because if you get all those things right, people will buy it, kind of.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's definitely the right way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So I
cool.
used to kind of work on the jewelry business on the weekends, and I had a full-time job for the first 4 years.
Yeah.
But I was just working around the
So
clock.
4 years.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of hard work. Well done. You know, so you had a full-time job and weekend working
Yeah.
on the jewelry for 4 years.
Yeah.
That's a graft, a hard graft. I think that's important for people to hear that because, you know, that's a lot of people think a year or whatever and I'll launch something and it'll be okay. But
No.
4 years is, it's really
Yeah.
commendable.
Thanks.
So how was that? Hard work. What was your social life saying at this point?
I had no social life.
Right.
But I also worked in fashion, journalism. I switched from newspaper journalism to fashion. So it just felt like home.
That must have fed into your
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, into the jewelry. You know?
Yeah. So I would wear a lot of my pieces and go to Fashion Week in
Yeah.
India. A lot of stylists or editors would be like, okay, that looks interesting. Can I use that for a shoot? And I'd be like, yeah, sure. So I'd go back home and make like 2 or 3 of the same things and,
Great. Yeah,
and
cool.
give it to the stylists or editors. I think a lot of people at some point didn't realize that I was running the brand and working as a journalist. So I had to sort of make that switch.
Yeah.
In fact, it got a little overwhelming because I'd like work through the week and the weekends would be fulfilling orders. You know, because I had an Etsy store, but I had around that time launched a website. So I had to like kind of.
And you're working on your own still at this point?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you're getting orders in online with the Etsy store and your website.
Yeah.
And you're just fulfilling everything on your own.
Yeah.
And then you've got 9 to 5 in the week.
Yes.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So how did you make that transition between, at what point did you go, right, no more journalism, I'm going to just dedicate all my time now to, you know, was that also like a steady transition, or was there a week where you're like, okay, I can't do this anymore, I'm stretching myself?
No, I actually...
Let's give the jewelry a go.
Yeah, but I actually enjoyed my job in journalism because I enjoyed being around...
Okay.
You know, I enjoyed writing.
So was it hard to leave the journalism?
I mean, I didn't want to... I had a lot of fun while, you know, going, writing or interviewing designers. But I had to... I remember there was a point where my mom was visiting me in Bombay and she saw like I had to fulfill about 60 or 50 orders. And I wouldn't like... Of course, I had like a 2 or 3 week time period where I could make and then ship it. But my mom was like, this is not how you run like a success, like your business is not, it'll stay the same if this is how you run it. Your customer is supposed to get the pieces like in 2 days or the next day.
I love that. So mom came in.
Yeah, she was just visiting.
And observed.
So so she came in and she was like, your house looks like a mess because there's like pliers and pearls and things all over the living room.
And how's your relationship with your mum? Can you receive that kind of feedback from your mum and it's okay, you know, you took it on board, or was it, you know, what's the dynamic between you and your mum?
I think when my mum saw that the business was sort of, when I was making some sort of money, that's when she suggested this. My dynamic, like my mum would love for the house to be great looking all the time. But she was like, I want to help. Otherwise she wouldn't, because I've always had hobbies. I've made candles on the side and I've made things on the side when like as a child. But she's never said anything. But with this, she was like, try and why don't you just give this a shot for a year? Because it looks like you're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
I was making more than my salary. I was making more than my full-time job. And she was like, why do you want the full-time job?
Yeah,
and I was like, I'm not sure if I can do this forever. I mean, I probably just got lucky now. Maybe this year seems like a good year, but I don't know about next year. And I like that safety. You know, I want to be like, I like being safe in that sense.
Yeah.
But she's sort of like a risk taker. She's taken a lot of risks in life in terms of business and just in general. So she was like, just like, why don't you just give this a shot for a year? If you can't take it, go back to working.
So your mum's quite influential. She was quite influential in the launching and the creation of Lune. Yeah.
Yeah, she
in that
was.
way.
Yeah.
Because my mum would say the opposite. She would be like, keep the job, don't do anything risky, you know?
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so. That's pretty cool though. So at that point, your mum's come in, she's assessed the situation of you're making more money with the jewelry. Why
Yeah.
don't you leave your job? So what happens after that?
I mean, I had to like kill my dream of wanting to become an editor, fashion editor.
Because you're enjoying your job as a
Yeah,
journalist at this
I'm
point.
enjoying it. And also the people that you get
How
to
did
meet.
you resolve, ending your position and all that kind of thing and make the step?
I mean, I just put in my papers and I just
Okay.
decided to do it for a year. But
Yeah.
like they say that once you start a business, you just don't want to get back to working. And I think I tried.
Were you scared, quitting the job? How did you feel at the time?
I think more than anything, I was kind of worried about my I didn't want to feel lonely because I know that running a business can feel quite lonely,
Definitely.
especially in the first few years. I knew I could sell my pieces, but building something from scratch, I think probably is the scariest thing you could do, like for a human being. Just like running a business and building everything from scratch, like little systems and like anything. It could be anything. You're essentially making all the decisions, and it could also not work. But also like making that first hire and designing a collection, telling that story really well, putting it out there. I mean, that first year was the most stressful year.
Right.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Yeah, because that's the leap of faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That year was probably the most stressful.
And did your mom continue to work with you in the first year?
No, she didn't. She, in fact, she joined me. So I wanted to come back to the UK to study jewelry design at Central St. Martin's.
So London, back to London, right?
Yeah.
So at this point, you spent time in Birmingham, and now you want to come back to London, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. So I visit the UK in 2012.
Yeah.
I start making jewelry. It's still a hobby. I go back to India. I work for a newspaper there.
Yeah.
And then I come back after I set up my business.
Okay.
I come back to London to study, just to see what, like, I wanted to do a small course. And that's when I decided to bring my mom on board because someone had to manage the business in India. And she would help me.
Was she ready?
She was almost like an advisor, but yeah, she was. She's been wanting to be a part of it from from the beginning.
Yeah.
But I mean, I set it up in Goa where she lives, where she used to live. And I come to London to study, do the course. I go back, and that's when we formalized it properly. So she came on board full time.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And no regrets.
No.
And so championing women in your business is something that you guys do as Lune and you and your mother. And how important is it for you to shine a light on women in the creative world and in business as well?
I mean, that's another thing that I kind of grew up, like I would listen to a lot of female artists.
Alanis, Morissette.
Yes. I would listen, I would read, I would look forward to hearing more stories about women, just because I wanted an example of maybe a different life.
Did you feel it was something that was lacking?
Yeah, I couldn't see a lot of women in the creative world do things like they weren't out there. Even now, like if you look at a lot of these magazines, like even Forbes, you'll see a lot of like billionaires who are just men, which is fine. But I just wanted to see an example of a woman living a creative life. And of course, you hear stories of Jane Austen and all of those authors through
the romanticized,
yeah. But you don't see someone who looks like you who's living a creative life.
Yeah.
And of course, you see people in politics, but not really in fashion that much in India. Or, so I would sort of...
Why do you think that is?
Fashion in India is a little like there's so many layers to it because firstly, India was essentially known as a manufacturing hub. So you have your Dior's and you have your big fashion houses who essentially come to India for just some sort of work, embroidery work or textile work, or if they had that if they wanted to include that for their collections. India is essentially going through a major transition right now where people are making things that are, I'm Indian, but I don't essentially make things that look very Indian. When I grew up, while I was growing up, there were a lot of designers, great designers, but making clothes that looked for bridal wear, because that's a great market to sell anything
Yeah, right.
in
Yes.
India,
Yeah.
especially because you have weddings that go on for like a week or whatever.
Mm.
So, but I still couldn't connect with them. I think it's still difficult to find people making contemporary clothing or jewelry and to see something that looks successful.
Do you
I
just think it's an area that's not developed yet?
I mean, it's things are changing.
Yeah.
That I have a lot of my third store is essentially a space for independent Indian brands and labels, but they all make contemporary clothing.
To help cultivate that kind of culture, I guess.
Yeah.
That's
So
cool.
it's happening right now.
Yeah.
I'm glad we are all I'm a part of it.
Well, this goes back to the example of, not making it for yourself. Basically, when you're a kid, is like we didn't have something, you made it for yourself.
Yeah.
So you, again, it's an example of you don't see the people that you want to see, and you're making that happen, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
He's definitely a DIY kind of person.
Yeah.
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 That's cool.
It's better to do that, I feel like, just to, instead of waiting for like an icon or like searching for someone. You
Yeah,
just
of
kind of
course.
do it yourself. I wish I knew that earlier.
Yeah,
But
right.
that is essentially why we the brand has a lot of women, or I try to hire women within the brand. It's because we also have a blog that has like stories about really successful women in journalism.
So tell us about the blog that you have on the website, which we will put a description on, but tell us about that.
We have a section on the blog called Stories,
Yeah.
and I do a little bit of my journalism work, I feel. I don't know, there.
So it comes through there, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I had to have that. But we feature a lot of women in business, journalism, arts, fashion, and women who aren't really that easily reachable or photographed. So I kind of have an eye for
Cool.
that. I feel like I know if someone seems reclusive, but she's doing great work, we try and get her number and,
That's cool.
feature
Who's been
her.
your favorite feature so far?
I mean, all of them are so lovely.
Of course.
All of them are my favorite.
Yeah.
But Meetu Sen, she's like a pretty cool artist.
Yeah.
It was interesting in interviewing her and even talking to her.
Yeah.
But she was based out of Delhi. We try and most of the women we feature are currently based out of Delhi or Bombay, not the other parts of India. So we want to do more of that. But yeah, Meetu, Shireen Bhan, she's like this really well-known news anchor in India. Nobody's like
Oh, cool.
interviewed her.
Yeah.
So
That's
that
great.
was interesting. Yeah.
That's a great platform for you to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. Who do you want to get on there, more importantly? Is there
I mean,
anyone
I have a long list of
Yeah.
names.
Okay, cool.
But yeah,
Who's at the top of that list?
I mean, I think I want to get like someone from the army or like a politician,
Wow. Yeah.
you
Okay.
know, and just kind of document that story. People who
Yeah.
who don't have publicists, essentially,
Yeah.
because you can just like Google their names and
Yeah.
you'll find a bunch of information. But yeah, we try to find people who essentially aren't out there and easy to get. So that's kind of interesting for the team as well.
And you can find that on the website.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Which is?
shoplune.com.
Perfect. Thank you. I wanted to ask you about connecting the dots between Goa, Bombay, Birmingham, and London. What inspiration do you draw from all these places, and how do they compare?
I mean, I think about that quite a bit whenever Lune turns, like when Lune turned 12, the team was pretty much thinking when Lune turned 10, we wanted to tell that story and connect the dots. But I feel because I essentially started, Birmingham has the Custard Factory, which is like a really popular place for creative.
I know the Custard Factory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the place where I kind of walked into and got the tools and stuff. But I'm quite inspired by the Custard Factory, actually. The whole idea of why they, that place works with a lot of independent businesses, small vintage stores, and it's funny. I've never seen something like that anywhere else.
Yeah. Would you say that each of these places has their own custard factory?
Which places?
Goa,
Yeah.
Bombay, London,
Custard
Birmingham.
Factory is pretty much a little bit like Goa is a little bit like that. In London,
on a larger scale.
Yeah. Bombay. Yeah, but I think the whole the DNA of, I think, people making things and then sort of, I don't know, I see a lot of DIY, the whole DIY culture, a lot more in London and in the UK.
Yeah.
In India, you kind of, you won't see a designer actually making a lot of their work. Because we have so much help. We're really lucky in India. We have like a lot of help. A lot of designers don't even start. You hire like the tailors or even the jewelry designers there, the karigars, the artisans. I think if you can communicate what you want to them, they're like super skilled and they'll do it for you. But the thing is that if it's something new or interesting, if it's like a unique piece of jewelry or something that they've never done before, you have to sit and collaborate with them. It'll take longer.
Sure.
But it's nothing that the artisans in India can't do, I feel like. But in the UK, if you start something of your own, you have to be making it first, unless you have big investments or, I don't know.
Definitely.
Depends on where you come
I think that
from.
goes across the board for anything creative. Mostly, you've got to be able to do it first.
Yeah.
And show that you can before anyone else will believe you or invest in you or, with time or anything like that. So, yeah, that's really true.
Yeah. So I think I took a little bit of that to India and I wouldn't let go. I would just make everything myself. And I wouldn't I didn't think it was authentic if I had help or, so I did a lot of the work myself. I don't think you'd see a lot of designers in India making things by hand for 4 years while having a full-time job.
Yes.
That is just me being me.
Yeah.
And just sort of trying to make it perfect. But I feel that kind of helped when I had to kind of hire people and then we had to sit and unlearn, and I had to teach them some of the techniques I learned. And it was like a true collaboration between me and the artisans, and it still is, and it's fun, and it's not in...
Do you enjoy that process?
Yeah, I do. Like, for instance, even the bangle that I'm wearing, it's one of our best sellers.
Yeah.
I don't use molds. Like, jewelers usually use molds and 3D renders and stuff. With this, we kind of just took pipes and we were just hammering. We're just trying to hammer different techniques. So we essentially, we just sit and have fun with whatever there is. Like, we work like almost, we don't take that traditional route of making jewelry. We try to have fun with it, try to create something different and see how it goes from there. So I think for the artisans in Jaipur, who I work with closely, for them, that's a very new thing because they're so used to gemstones and the bridal wear, the more intricate. For them, this is essentially, will anyone buy this? Like, the first question would be like,
right, yeah.
What are you making? Like, who's going to buy this?
Yeah, sure. What kind of materials do you work with mostly? And, except for the obvious, I guess, but
yeah.
Do you have any favorites too?
I don't actually. I mean, I just kind of, like, when I started off, I was 20. When I started the brand, I was 24. And I was really into, I mean, I could only afford brass then. So I just made brass.
And you plated the brass?
But plated it with 18 karat solid gold.
Yeah, cool.
And then I slowly moved to sterling silver. I would make jewelry with sterling silver. But what we've done is, right now at Lune, we've kind of categorized, we we firstly offer a lot of customizations that a lot of high street brands don't offer.
What kind of customizations do
Like
you
if
offer?
you want something, a ring in a different size, a bigger size or smaller,
Okay.
we do that in 4 weeks.
Oh, cool.
We
Across the whole range.
across the whole range. As long as you don't like sort of tweak the design, we are
Sure, of
okay
course.
with
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
okay with sizing, the lengths of chains. We make jewelry in 18 karat solid gold as
And that
well.
service is across all the stores.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun because people kind of get excited and it's fun to kind of just
But it's really important too, with jewelry, for things to fit, because
yeah.
it's next to the skin. Most of the rings especially anyway. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think it's important to also listen to the customer. We've been doing that. I do that quite like my mom does that as well in the business. She's just like, it makes sense if 5 people are asking for it, why aren't we making it, or why don't we
Your
offer
mum
this?
sounds like a retail guru. She really does. She knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, and she also kind of has a sense of, even with the Hallmark store when it closed down, a lot of people were, that was the only card store in Goa there isn't a card store right now. So people are quite used to giving each other cards in Goa, especially.
Yeah.
So people were quite heartbroken because they'd come and talk to her, they'd built that relationship with her. So community is a major, she believes in that quite a bit. It's not just about opening a store and that's it. So she kind of talks to all of the customers. She listens to them.
Got a good ethos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's quite, if she feels like if you're paying for something, you have to go out of your way and offer that service. So she goes that extra mile to do all of the, she provides, like, it was her decision to offer customizations and all of that.
It really seems like she was the right person to work with for for your transition to retail and a business, in that respect.
It feels quite surreal because we don't mess with each other's departments. So we just let her, she just lets me do my thing and I let her do.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned using brass initially.
Yeah.
And then plating.
So right now we have 3 categories. We have 18 karat solid gold. We do sterling silver and we do plated brass. And we also we work with gold, silver, the tone, and gunmetal, which is something that we released recently, which is something
how is gunmetal created? I'm interested. I don't know that.
It's just like another sort of thing. Like it's another material form when we play with. It's almost like paints, but it's like an alchemy, a little
so
bit
it's pigmented.
It's pigmented, yeah.
Right.
It's pigmented, but we also play with, if you wanted matte black or, a little sort of
cool,
a little shiny or chromish. But we worked on that pigment for a long, long time. And it's supposed to, and it has to stick to the metal as well, especially with brass and sterling silver. But these are essentially the materials and platings that we work with. And then but Lune is divided into, our jewelry is essentially, while we have these 3 materials, we have Lune sculptural and Lune miniatures, which is something that we just created because the minis are like really dainty, smaller pieces, like earrings and piercings.
A bit more delicate.
Delicate and also available in fine and sterling silver.
Yeah.
But the more experimental pieces, which comes under Lune sculptural, is essentially made with brass because then you can just, we don't stop ourselves in terms of being creative or doing something that looks completely like out of the blue or looks like, sometimes we make things within that we feel nobody will buy, but people actually buy.
Okay. Luckily.
Yeah. So we do things like that within sculptural. That's like a playground. So if we feel uninspired or we work with a new material or new form and then we stick with it. And sometimes we work on that form for like years.
You can be a bit freer within the sculpture kind of range, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With miniatures, we are just more mindful about comfort, wearability, everyday wear, like how would someone feel while, just sleeping with the pieces or
Yeah.
wearing it every day. But with sculptural, we kind of like make things for occasions, or if you want to just express yourself.
Statement pieces
Yeah.
that might be a bit uncomfortable.
That might, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Is there any kind of, in my kind of jewelry ignorance, is there any materials that you'd like to work with that are kind of a bit out there, like that you could combine?
I think I'm working with all of the materials that I've always wanted to work with.
Yeah.
But even with solid gold,
Mm,
while 9 carat gold is really popular in the UK
mm,
and the US, I think in the US more, and 14 carat is really popular. It's like a standard sort of solid gold material that a lot of people
yeah.
work with. But
Mm,
uh, I decide 24 carat is something that's not too common.
no.
But a lot of people work with that, I think, in Dubai, the Middle East. 24 carat is softer. So the shape can just completely go off,
Yeah.
or the design that you're visualizing it won't look like what you're trying to visualize or trying to create. So we decided not to work with 24. 9 carat and 14 carat, we just thought that that would be too hard because it has more of another metal in it. But with 18 carat, I felt like the gold looks like the actual solid gold color.
It's got
And
the
it's,
right yellow to it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's not too hard or soft. So we feel like 18 carat. So we work with, I think that was like a decision that we kind of, when we decided to work with 18 carat, with fine gold, we decided to stick with 18 carat because it just seemed right, like in the
Yeah.
middle.
The right combination
Yeah.
of firmness and color, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah. That's cool. It's cool to know how you got to that decision,
Yeah. I
because
mean, there are,
I'm not really aware of the differences between the carrots really. I know about the cost of them,
yeah.
but I don't know, the characteristics of between them. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Right.
So 18 carat will be more long lasting, I feel. But
Yeah.
yeah, sterling silver is a pretty cool material, which is affordable, and there's a
Yeah.
lot that you can play around. Materials like platinum and titanium, those are materials that you can't really play around because they're like really hard. So
Mm.
people make a lot of wedding bands with platinum.
I know platinum, people make rings out of platinum, but is titanium something that can be manipulated easily? Titanium?
No, that's a hard
Yeah,
material as
right.
well. Like
Yeah,
stainless steel is like a hard material. Like you can wear it in water and do whatever with
sure.
it, but it's just like you can't be creative with it. Like I
No.
don't want to work with a material that I can't be creative as well. Of course, there's a business part of it. I could sell it as
Yeah.
it like it's a more affordable metal and
Make some knives and forks. Yeah. So in terms of inspiration, look, as a creative, we all lose inspiration sometimes. Do you have any go-to routines or practices when you're kind of down on inspiration? Do you like to take yourself to a show, or do you have a place that you visit? Where do you get your inspiration from when you're feeling a bit down?
I think right now there's like I think what going through is like there's a lot, right? You're on your phone and there's so much going on and everyone's
Mm,
doing things and all
yeah.
kind of looks the same. I'm just trying to cut off from that. um
So instead of looking for more,
yeah, I'm not
in fact,
looking.
just
Yeah.
filtering. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes complete sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think what I've been trying to also do in the past few years is just not look around for inspiration. I like going to a few art galleries. One of the reasons why I'm here is because of that. I want to see what's happening here, or
In
maybe
London.
Berlin
Yeah.
or
Mm.
Japan if I feel like. But um, everything's on the internet pretty much. I think right now I'm trying to sort of just go inward more and see what, I think create in a state of um, peace and not I don't want anything to sort of uh, come in between me and maybe what I could sketch or think of.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm trying to stay away from that extra content that we consume online.
Sounds healthy. How do you
Yeah.
go about doing that? Do you just turn your phone off, or? Do you have routines with social media and are you strict about it?
No, I'm not strict about anything,
Yeah.
but I try to like I've been lately I try to sort of go back to what I used to create when I was like 10 years ago. I look at my sketchbooks in the past. A lot of collections I come out with, like last year we came out with this collection called Senses, which
Mm.
is essentially like inspired by anxiety tools. And
Wow. Okay.
yeah, so we just do like things that are um out of the box or not been done before, like looking at jewelry in a different way. So we released a collection that was essentially like these cuffs where you could like just tap, which is like a way of feeling calm.
Yeah. Wow. How did they
Or
sell? They do well.
I don't know if
They're
we did
popular.
a great job of like putting that
Okay.
the
Right.
idea out
Yeah.
there, but we did, and people were quite like they were curious when they came into the
Yeah.
stores. We placed them in ways where they could like play with the material. We
Mm.
also collaborated with like a chocolate farm, and we came out with like a bar of chocolate because taste and just
Yeah.
a way of sort
That's
of
cool. That's
people.
really cool.
We released a candle with another candle maker,
Yeah.
um, and a mixtape by a friend who's
Like
a
multi-sensory
yeah,
experience.
a multi-sensory experience. So people could
Wow.
just come into our spaces and interact with the pieces and
Yeah.
with the space in a different way as opposed to just customer s- store manager,
Yeah.
so that there was more to take away. Um, so we do things like that. We kind of just do things that are out of the box. I feel if things are already out there, doesn't like really excite me anymore. So we
No,
have to just
sure.
come up with something that's
What would you say is your umbrella ethos for Lune? I'm sure you must have something that that you can describe it in a way, but yeah, do you think Lune has an ethos that you kind of pitch? I don't know, to maybe new staff or to potential business partners or
yeah. I mean, that's what everybody essentially asks me.
okay.
But I think it's to be as creative as possible because we don't have investors and we can just use the space. I mean, I started it when I pretty much didn't have a big fund and I still made it creative and made it work. So if we do have, if we are doing well right now, we
Mm,
better be more creative. I think that scares a lot of people who come into work.
yeah, sure.
But I'm just like, let's create something that's never been done before with a brand.
Mm.
So I mean, I look at other brands like A24 Productions, the production house, but the films that they make. I look at that and I'm just like, wow, it's kind of disrupted the whole production film.
So you get inspiration from other brands doing other things.
Yeah, like
That's
if
cool.
yeah,
So
other
that's where you
brands.
get inspiration from,
Yeah, I do.
yeah. Okay.
If there's a brand or a company that's doing something or a person, an
Sure.
artist
Yeah.
doing something that's completely different and no one's seen it, I think that inspires me
Mm.
a lot. So then
Okay.
I'm just like, okay, so even we can do something it kind of gives us permission, I feel, I don't know, or
Yeah.
it kind of pushes me towards that path where I can do something
Mm.
completely different.
Lune's been going for 12 years, right? Which you could say is well-established brand now.
I
Do you
guess.
have like the diehard customer or customers that buy every range that comes out, come into the store regularly, send emails, write comments on the blog?
Yeah, we do. I mean, it's quite like sort of the first time a customer reached out to us or recognized me somewhere.
Oh
I
yeah.
was with a friend actually who's a comedian, and we thought she was coming up to him because he's
Mhm.
popular, but
Yeah.
she came up to me and she's like, Are you that jewelry designer
Wow,
that I?"
yeah.
And he was like, "This is odd."
How did he
So
feel about
I mean,
that?
I was just a little confused as well, but I
Yeah.
was like,
But
"Thanks,"
you
but
put
it was
it put a smile on your face?
yeah.
Yeah.
But I also thought it was just like a one-off thing.
Sure, yeah.
But then, of course, when sometimes at the airport we make these stickers and I have them on my laptop, we sometimes send out stickers to
Of
customers
the brand's
of the
name. Yeah,
brand,
okay.
or like we have a lot of artwork. Um, we collaborate with a lot of artists to come up with limited edition sticker sheets or clothing and things like that. And someone spotted that at the airport, and she was like, "I have a sticker too." And and she was like, "Do you work at Lune?" And I was like, "Yes."
Yeah,
Nice
yeah.
to meet you. So we do have people who kind of recognize us, but also we have customers who buy from us. Like every collection, they look forward to it. They come to the stores, and we release a collection, and in 2 months they're waiting for the next collection. But it takes about a year for us to make one collection.
Yeah, right.
So we
Okay.
try to release like a summer, a winter, and small little capsules in between. But we can't work as fast as like a fast
Yeah.
fashion brand.
I was going to ask, how would you even try to keep up in that way? And do you need to as a jewelry brand?
I mean, there's sort of like a demand for it. We see that. We see that the customers want to see something new almost every 2 months. But we try to release, like, for instance, we don't want to get into that spiral of releasing things that may, like, then it just gets boring for us as well.
Yeah.
So we try to release interesting things. Like we have a section called Lune Explores Type. It's like a type. We try to explore typography.
Cool.
So Indian scripts and typography in
Yeah.
different ways. So we release letters and collaborate with graphic designers within that section. Then we have a bunch of like these little educational academic sort of sections where we release jewelry under that. So that's interesting and fun for a lot of people. You don't get alphabets in different languages. India, I mean, we have so many languages within the country, but it's difficult for someone from the North India to understand what's like Kannada is from the South. So we are releasing a little collection with Kannada letters.
Cool.
So that's something that's interesting for the team, for the customers. So
Yeah.
they look forward to something new and interesting. I think the customers know that it will be interesting in a way. I don't know.
Yeah.
But sometimes if a collection doesn't do as well, we feel really bad, but it essentially does well slowly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So that makes us feel.
I guess if the people that regularly buy stuff suddenly don't on something, they're kind of
Yeah, I mean, I'm worried about that because we have customers who have something from every collection since I started. I know someone who has pieces from me from the time I used to make the pieces by hand. So from
wow.
2012,
And that's not a friend. That's just a customer.
that's a friend.
Oh,
She's a
and
friend.
a
She's a
friend
friend.
now for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's a friend. And we have customers too who have pieces from each collection. They'll buy one or two
That's
from
really
each
cool.
collection. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's how a brand becomes a heritage brand. I would say. I would
Yeah,
argue
hope so.
because these people have children and they grow up wearing mom or dad's jewelry or whatever, whoever it might be, and suddenly it just becomes something that's generational. That's pretty cool. You'd hope, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it wasn't for jewelry or journalism, how do you think you would express yourself creatively? Is there anything else that caught your eye in the arts that you wanted to do ever?
I mean, I've always wanted to be a good painter.
Okay.
But my brother is a really good artist and painter, so I would never dare paint because he's so good at it.
Yeah.
But I think something within fashion or like branding. I don't know about a product. Like I think
Yeah.
I think about this sometimes. People tell us to make clothes a lot. Um, but I'm just like I'm not trained to make clothes, so I won't
And
make
it doesn't,
clothes.
does any spark of interest happen when you talk about clothes or not really at all?
I mean, I enjoy, like, I know I'm not, I think sometimes I'm quite like, sort of like a realist. Like, I know it would take time for me to learn it. I enjoy clothes. I love clothes. I like seeing
Yeah.
interesting things made by other designers. But I mean, I'm just confident about making jewelry really well. And I think I have that, like, I feel like I can design even when I'm not at my best, like, not 100% because I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
So I can innovate
A
within that.
master, one might say.
I don't know.
Master level. And to anyone that wants to begin creating, or let's even say jewelry making, what advice would you give them that's starting out in a creative journey?
I think I just feel like don't look at anyone's, even though, I mean, it's great to be inspired by other people's stories,
Mhm.
which is what I sort of went looking for when I was younger. But I feel just be confident and start doing it. Like, don't wait for a grand time. Like, don't wait 6 months and research and just do nothing about it. I feel like just get started.
Just do.
Just get started and
Yeah.
figure it out. And it's okay if you fail a million times and you still stick with it, but have a full-time job.
Yeah, work
Yeah.
weekends, have a full-time job. Okay, cool. Well, Sreesha, it's been great talking to you and having you on the podcast. Is there anything you're looking forward to coming up in the future with yourself and Lune?
I'm excited to travel at the moment and sort of meet with other creatives and exchange ideas. I'm looking forward to our new collections and just sort of traveling a little more.
Keeping it going
Yeah.
and visiting some new spots. Cool.
Cool.
Thank you so much. Good luck with it all.
Thanks for
Cheers.
having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for watching Toast and Jams. If you enjoyed this episode, hit like and subscribe to stay updated. And to hear our guest tune selection, check out the playlist or the link in the description. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, of course, and see you next time. This has been a joint production between Toast and Jams and Allan Brothers Films.